So Aubrey, you are normally identified as the leading guru on what people call normally immortality. But beyond that and longevity extension, could you tell us what has happened in the last 10 years and what might happen in the next 10 years?
So first of all, I think it's important to emphasize that immortality is really not an appropriate word to use to explain what I do and what this movement does. Immortality is a word that belongs to religion because it describes having no risk of death from any cause, even from, being hit by a truck or from an asteroid impact or something. And I don't work on those things, though I'm very pleased that there are some other people who do work on them. We work on bringing aging under complete medical control. And yes, colloquially, some people like to call that immortality because it will mean that, in principle, if one avoids being hit by trucks and so on, then one could live indefinitely. But what we do is simply medical research. We want to allow people to stay healthy, however long ago they were born, in just the same way that medicine can already eliminate the risk of disease and death from most infectious diseases. And in the past 10 years, there has been great progress in bringing this about. Some of the progress is well known because it is very near to the clinic. In particular, stem cell therapies are now available in clinical trials for a number of different conditions, including some conditions associated with old age, such as Parkinson's disease. And that progress will continue, of course. There are many other things that go wrong in the body and the mind as we get older, and those things are normally much harder to address, and the technology to bring them under medical control is at an earlier stage of development. That's really why Sense Foundation exists. We exist because we are, as a non-profit, able to work in the long term, to work on really difficult problems without having to worry about quarterly profit margins the way that companies need to do.
What are the technologies other than the stem cell that you mentioned that would improve our longevity and ending aging?
I believe that we need to classify the types of technology that we need according to the types of damage, the types of molecular and cellular change that occur in the body throughout life that eventually contribute to the ill health of old age. Back in the year 2000, I suggested such a classification into 7 major categories. One category was the loss of cells, cells dying and not being automatically replaced by the division of other cells, and that is the category which is addressed by stem cell therapy. But the other 6 categories are just as important because they also contribute to age-related ill health at the same kind of age. Things like heart disease, which is caused by the accumulation of toxic waste products inside certain cells in the artery. Or, for example, cancer, which is caused by cells becoming uncontrolled and dividing when they are not supposed to. Or we could look at Alzheimer's disease, for example, which seems to be caused by the accumulation of different types of waste product, both inside and outside cells. So all of these things need to be addressed, and the technologies that we think will work will be technologies that repair or make harmless this damage. For example, in Sense Research Foundation, one thing that we have been working on for several years is to introduce new enzymes into the body, enzymes coming from other species, especially from bacteria. The purpose of this is because those enzymes can break down some of the waste products which cause things like cardiovascular disease, even though we cannot naturally break them down. And it's a very difficult project, but we are already making great progress. Just a year or so ago, we were able to show that it works well in cell culture, just in cells growing in a dish. And that means that we have made the first step to, first of all, making them work again in mice, with mouse models of cardiovascular disease, and then eventually in humans.
Are there already some living forms that do not age, or even cells? Because sometimes people talk about germinal cells or cancer cells. So are there other living forms already that don't age?
This is a very important question because in many ways it comes down to a question of terminology. We must understand exactly what we mean by aging, and in order to do that we have to understand what we mean by living, by being an organism, a single organism. Species which do not age includes most cells that are simple single-celled organisms like bacteria, And they also include certain smaller, more simple multicellular organisms like hydra or sea anemones. These organisms tend to be rather unusual in that there is no separation between what is called the soma and the germline. In other words, cells which can go on to form the offspring of the organism and cells which cannot. In mammals, such as you and me, there is a clean separation. There are certain cells which go to form sperm and eggs, and other cells do not. And it is organisms like that in which aging as we know it can really be defined. Now, if we ask the question, are there any organisms like that which have no aging, that's actually a controversial and complicated question, because some organisms age even more slowly than human beings do, and when they age that slowly, it takes a very long time to determine whether they are aging at all. So it's really an open question. But what we can say is that it's possible to age more slowly than we do. It's not necessarily possible for humans to age more slowly than we do as a result of medicine, and that's why we are focusing not on slowing aging down, but actually reversing aging, rejuvenating people so that they are biologically younger than before the therapies were applied. And certainly there are no organisms which naturally do that and that have this separation.
Or if we do not age, or if we live 500 years as you claim, in the future, will we have free love? Or will we have the current marriage system?
It's extremely hard to know anything about how lifestyles will develop in the distant future. One thing we always have to remember is that this is not the only technology which will change our lives. New technologies come along all the time, and they have the chance to change our lives much more rapidly than the elimination of the ill health of old age would do. However, for sure, we can imagine that when we move into a post-aging world, life will be very different and lifestyles will be different. There are, of course, today many different lifestyles. Some people have many different relationships in their lives. Some people have more than one relationship at the same time. And I don't see why that would change. Maybe there would be even more variety, but I don't know. Marriage is a very specific thing, and really, of course, it is not so much a relationship as a statement of a relationship.
That's right.
It is just a statement of commitment. So I don't really see why that would need to go away, because it's really the same in an indefinite longevity as it is today.